From the streets of New York to the skies of Metropolis, there is always news regarding superheroes. And DC and Marvel both just dropped some pretty crazy news. And that's why today we're going to be doing a DC and Marvel news roundup. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Alright, as I said, we have a little bit of Marvel and then also some DC news. So, first I will get through all the DC news, then get to Marvel. Spoiler alert, the Marvel thing is probably what I am most excited to talk about because it has to do with Spider-Man Brand New Day. But stay tuned to check that out. Now, that being said, we are going to get right into all the newest DC news, most of which is going to be surrounding the DC Universe by James Gunn. So, if you've been following this channel, you'll know that there were some series plans for some spin-offs, specifically from the Superman movie that I had mentioned, and it seems that one of them did get greenlit. Now again, if you checked out that video, you will already know my thoughts on it. However, let's get into it again because we do have even more details about that series and about who will be writing it and the showrunner for that show. So without further ado, the first project that they did confirm will be Jimmy Olsen. Yes, you heard it right, it will be centering around Jimmy Olsen. And if you can't tell by my reaction, I think this is absolutely absurd. Now, the only silver lining here is that it will not be titled Jimmy Olsen. It will not be titled The Daily Planet. It will be titled DC Crime. Now, this title alone could have potential. If every single episode were to be about a supervillain and you center the entire story around each individual villain, that could be an amazing project, and it could rival the likes of the Penguin for just pure popularity. DC has some of the best villains that definitely deserve their own project. However, that's not what this is, at least not from the sounds of it. Yes, they will be having different supervillains appear. Yes, they will have through-line storylines that focus a little bit on the supervillains. However, the main purpose and the main characters of this show will be Jimmy Olsen and the people who work at the Daily Planet. And I know what you might be thinking. Well, Clark Kent, Superman, and Lois Lane both work at the Daily Planet. This could be awesome. No. One of the first confirmations that we did get is that Clark Kent and Lois Lane will not appear as series regulars in this show. And it was also stated that they likely won't appear at all. Now again, I'm not saying for this show to be good, we have to have it centered around Superman and Lois, or they have to appear in every single episode. However, I feel like if you have an 8-episode series, if they don't appear in at least 2 episodes, that's a huge missed opportunity just to help with the connectivity of the greater DC world. But they did have one other silver lining about this show, and that was Gorilla Grodd. Gorilla Grodd will be a main character in this. Now again, that's why I say I don't fully understand how they're going to handle the other supervillains, if they are going to have one supervillain be a one-off character in each episode. But if that's the case, then how would Gorilla Grodd be a main character? Unless it's just him mind controlling and using his abilities to control and manipulate other supervillains, and we use that as the medium to get other villains included. That would somewhat make sense, and it would also make sense tying into the new Superman movie, Superman Man of Tomorrow, and we do know with Peacemaker being on Salvation, they are going to start using that as a metahuman prison. So again, like I said, if it was a story focusing on each individual supervillain, that would be a lot cooler. But to me, it's sounding like, from what the creators and showrunners are saying, that this is very much so going to be a story that we see through the eyes of Jimmy Olsen, that we see through the eyes of Perry White, Cat Grant, and everyone else who works at the Daily Planet, aside from Superman and Lois, obviously, which is really unfortunate because I think it would be way cooler if they were in it also, and you had the supervillains be the main characters, and you get to see Superman, Lois, and the people of the Daily Planet through the eyes of the supervillains. And then maybe you can have a more sympathetic look at the villains and a different look towards the people who are supposed to be the heroes. I always think that's a really, really cool switch of roles that could work really well, especially for this universe. So to me, that is a huge missed opportunity already, and probably one of the shows that I am least looking forward to. Now, that being said, they did also announce another DC show called V for Vendetta, and if any of you are asking, well, what the hell is that? Don't worry, I have you covered. I was in a very similar position. This is based on a graphic novel written by Alan Moore, and this is a story that is 100% Elseworlds. It takes place in England in the 1900s, and it is a story in which V, who is the protagonist in this story, does take on the government and uses terrorist tactics to take on this dystopian society, this dystopian government that has taken over in this reality. So again, that could be really cool. However, I will say, because we're still in the beginning stages of the DC universe, for this to be a project really baffles me. Similar to when they announced that Sergeant Rock is going to potentially be a project. To me, there are so many other projects we should have. Why not a Green Arrow TV show, a Static Shock TV show, or a show about the Question or the Huntress? There are so many characters in DC that deserve a project above V for Vendetta. I mean, come on. Again, I don't mean to hate because I absolutely love DC. However, it is very frustrating when they are just deliberately, in my opinion, for lack of a better term, shooting themselves in the foot. Because a lot of, especially casual fans, aren't going to really care about a lot of these stories. I am a diehard fan, and I don't very much so care about these stories, specifically the Jimmy Olsen story, because we do not need it. We don't need Jimmy Olsen to be the center stage character. If they switched the roles, and instead of having Jimmy Olsen be the main character, and instead he was the background side character, and the supervillains were the main characters of that show, it would be fantastic. However, from the sounds of it, and from what the creator of that show is saying, it doesn't sound like that at all, and that's a really, really big shame. Again, it's just a missed opportunity in my mind. Now, that being said, we do have a couple pieces of good news, one of which is the Dynamic Duo movie, which is going to be animated. It is going to star Red Hood and Nightwing. It is going to show us a little bit about their journey from Robin to Nightwing and from Robin to Red Hood, which is really, really cool. Again, I've said it on this channel before, I absolutely love Nightwing. It's my favorite DC character by far, and I do really, really enjoy Red Hood. And even more than that, I really enjoy the dynamic between Nightwing and Red Hood, and I'm really excited to see what they do with that. But I think the thing that excites me most about that project is how it came to be. This project is being written, directed, and animated by a studio that was going to do a Catwoman project. If none of you know, before James Gunn and Peter Safran took over, they did have some plans to do a Catwoman animated movie. It was going to follow a young Selena Kyle and show her journey to becoming Catwoman. However, that was not the fault of James Gunn or Peter Safran. It was just the higher-ups deciding we're going to do a full clean slate, and because of that, they came up with Dynamic Duo. But not just that, because initially it was a no. However, someone got involved that made it a yes, and that someone is Matt Reeves. And yes, if any of you know Matt Reeves, he is the one behind the Batman Part 2, the Penguin series, Batman Caped Crusader. Again, he has done a lot of really, really cool and amazing things with the character of Batman and with that universe of Gotham and the Bat family. And he said one of his most anticipated projects is the Dynamic Duo because he's always been really interested in the relationship between Batman and Robin, whether it's Dick Grayson or Jason Todd. And he thinks the best medium for that is in animation. But that also brings up something else. He stated that not only is the best medium for doing Robin in animation, he said it's the only way that he really knows how to do that. So that's really interesting. That tells us that Robin most likely will not appear in the Batman Part 2 or probably the Batman Part 3. And I don't know about any of you, but in my opinion, I actually really like that. Even though, like I said, Nightwing is by far my favorite DC character. I'm okay with that story just being about Batman. He is a much younger Batman. Batman traditionally does not get Dick Grayson his first Robin until about year 3. Sometimes it's about 2.5 years in, but still, it's usually about 3 to 4 years into being Batman. And as we know, in this universe, he's 1 year, 6 months in. And the second movie is going to take place shortly after the first one. And how do I know that? Because they did confirm that the Batman 2 is going to be a Christmas style movie. Now, what do I mean by that? Are we going to have Batman fighting someone in a sleigh? No. It's just going to take place around the time of Christmas, which to me is really, really cool, especially depending on the villain that they do choose. In my opinion, this would perfectly set up either Mr. Freeze or Hush. I feel like both of them would be absolutely perfect for a Christmas style movie. But what do all of you think? Let me know in the comments down below. But that is not it. We also got a little bit more details about the Green Lantern series that is going to star Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart in a buddy cop style show. Now, before any of you freak out and say, oh no, that means we're not going to get cool special effects. Oh no, we are. Because in this statement from Chris Mundy, one of the creators and showrunners of the Lantern show did state that one of the big things will be focusing on the constructs from the Green Lanterns. Yes, that means we are going to get big jets, a baseball bat, a baseball glove, a punching glove. So many different things that I want to see utilized in this show, I believe are truly going to be utilized. They're going to fully dive into that comic book lore from the Green Lanterns. And yes, they are going to do a true detective style show. However, they are going to mix that, obviously because it is a superhero show, with elements like the different constructs that the Green Lanterns do create. So that to me sounds really awesome. The other thing that I'm really excited about is that they describe the relationship between Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart as a mentorship, and Hal Jordan is reluctantly forced to mentor Jon Stewart. So that tells me that at first he's not going to have much respect for Jon Stewart. He is not going to want to take this job seriously of being a mentor to Jon Stewart. But over time, they are going to start to see eye to eye, and Jon Stewart is going to earn the respect of Hal Jordan, who is described as a Lantern legend in this universe. Now, the only negative that I have about this show, again, we don't know a ton about it. However, the one detail that we do know is that this is going to be somewhat of a passing of the torch type of situation, and it's going to be a story about replacement. Now, the reason I say that this could be a big downer is because I don't want them to either, one, kill off Hal Jordan, or two, my very least favorite storyline in possibly all of comics. Again, there are a lot of comic storylines I don't like, but this is one of my least favorite, and that's where they turn Hal Jordan into a version of Parallax. I just don't like that. I don't understand how the greatest or one of the greatest Green Lanterns in history, a Lantern legend, the one with the strongest willpower, goes down that path. That's just never really made sense to me. And if they had a couple seasons, maybe a movie or two, and then did it, it would make sense. However, jumping in right to this with an 8 to 10 episode series and turning him into Parallax really would not make sense to me. So I'm praying they don't do that. I would prefer them just kill him off, although I wouldn't want that either. If I'm being totally honest, in a perfect world, I hope that they're saying replacement as in have Jon Stewart just be the focal point and him becoming a Lantern legend as well, and him being more of the main Lantern, and Hal Jordan will maybe just cameo here and there. I would just prefer that a lot more. I don't really like when you have to kill off the old version of the character to spotlight the new version of the character. I think that they can coexist, and I really do like the relationship between Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan in the comics. I think it's really, really cool, especially that mentor-mentee mentality they do have and relationship that does grow over time. I think it's really, really cool to see. Now, that being said, that is essentially all we have from DC. So let me know in the comments what all of you think of that. However, I did save the best for last because Spider-Man Brand New Day dropped this image, and I am showing it here on screen, of what is the definitively best Spider-Man suit we have ever gotten in live action. This looks like it was peeled straight from the comics, straight from Spider-Man 1994, Spider-Man the Animated Series. It is perfect. I would venture to say it is one of, if not the best superhero suits we've ever got. So I figured I had to throw it in here too, because it looks amazing. Again, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. Hope all of you guys are as well, because this suit is absolutely beautiful. So let me know in the comments what you think of that too. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.